What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and you are probably just seeing the release of issue 2 of Arcadia, the new monthly zine by MCDM. At least I know it's a monthly zine for at least the first, I think, 4 months, and then the plan after that is to evaluate. That specifics is, again, more things that you can find through MCDM. However, Arcadia issue 2 is here, and I have a copy of it, so I'm going to give it a review for all of you. I'm not going to go through and read everything in its entirety, but there's a couple of key things I did want to take a look at and talk to you about. So we'll jump right over here and take a look at it. So you can see issue 2. And again, you can see all of the different folks involved in here. And there's basically 4 parts. The first is a letter from the editor, James Introcaso. By the way, thank you, James, for shooting over a copy of this for review purposes. And then we have 4 subclasses. They're called subclasses of the seasons. And as one can assume, that's summer, winter, spring, and autumn or fall. We have a periodic table of elementals. So we have new sort of elementals or elementals as it were, and then an adventure, Well of the Lost Gods. So I'll be honest with you, I read through the subclasses. I felt like they were either something I in some instances wasn't super interested in, or I thought were maybe on the OP side-ish of things. However, I do really like, where is it? It's the Bard. I really like the College of Springtide Bard. I think the other ones also, they got a little more experimental than I like with changing of mechanics and things, but this one I thought fell very much within the realm of what we know in C and 5e and what I would consider to be balanced. So, what do you get when you enter the College of Springtide? At level 3, after finishing a long rest, you gain proficiency in a skill or tool of your choice, and when you finish a long rest, you can change those proficiencies. Now, this is not something unheard of. We kind of see this on the Phantom Rogue, and considering the Rogue and Bard have similar capabilities, it makes sense to me. Additionally, you learn the Cure Wounds spell. If you already know that spell, you can learn another first level Bard spell of your choice, and the spell doesn't count against the number of Bard spells you know. A lot of time, I'd say more often than not, Bards end up seeming to take Healing Word for whatever reason, but hey, a freebie Cure Wounds and not counting against your Bard list, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of versatility in the skill and tool proficiency on a long rest. Again, the Phantom Rogue gets to change it on a short rest, so you're not really stepping on their toes either, and that makes sense to me. And then we also get our second third level ability here, which is, I think that's Petrichor? I think that's how you say that? You learn to infuse your bardic inspirations with the calming aftermath of early morning rain. Also, for all of these classes, regardless, the flavor text is just very evocative and it's just very well done. When you give a bardic inspiration die to a creature affected by an effect that a saving throw can end, that creature can immediately make the saving throw at the end to end the effect. So what this means is, let's say you have an ally that is trapped by a hold person. And if you're familiar with hold person, the way that works is that person can make the wisdom saving throw to try and break the hold person at the end of their turn. This is allowing you to give a bonus action, use bonus action to give them bardic inspiration, which they now have, and they can immediately make that saving throw to try and avoid, in that case, to break the hold person, but they now have the bardic inspiration as well. It doesn't say they have to use the bardic inspiration to break the saving throw. It's just allowing them to do so, and if they would like to apply the bardic inspiration die to it, they can. And this is really good, because this kind of reminds me of, I think it's the Arcana Cleric has an ability where if you heal someone, you can end a spell effect on them equal to the level of the healing spell you cast. This is better because it's any effect. It doesn't have to just be a spell. And I like it. I think it's really well done. Then our 6th level ability is Downpour Respite. Your presence is like a midday drizzle, refreshing your allies and disheartening your enemies. Beginning at 6th level, if you deal damage to a creature, the next time you cast the Cure Wounds spell before the end of your next turn, that you cast that spell as a bonus action. Additionally, creatures that benefit from your Song of Rest regain additional hit points to your Charisma modifier. So, First of all, additional charisma modifier hit points to Song of Rest seems pretty useful in my mind. It's not going to be a bad thing. It just depends on how often you're using Song of Rest and how much your party short rests to heal. Obviously, you have a bard at this point, so you probably should be short resting, right? So they can get their bardic inspirations back. And I like this. It's kind of a duality here, right? Where if you damage someone of any kind, it doesn't have to be spells or melee attacks or whatever it is, any kind of damage that you deal to an enemy, the next time you go to cast Cure Wounds, it's Cure Wounds as a bonus action. I don't think there's anything unbalanced with that, especially because as a bard, you have bonus action utility right out the gate in Bardic Inspiration, so you have to make that call. Do I want to give the inspiration and maybe cause someone to be able to get out of a saving throw, or would I rather heal? I'm still limited to what Cure Wounds is, which is it's a touch spell, and obviously this could also multi-class very well if you were to do something like Sorcerer and get Extend Spell, or Distance Spell, but we're moving on here. To Storm Song, the level 14 ability. Once per round, when you are an ally within 60 feet of you scores a critical hit or reduces a creature to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to regain a use of Bardic Inspiration. You can use this feature a number of times per day equal to your Charisma modifier, and you get all uses back when you finish a long rest. So I think that's great. You know, your Bardic Inspiration, you get them back on a short rest anyway. So you're going to have, potentially up to 5, back on a short rest. But now it's whenever you or an ally, which is nice, scores a critical hit or drops a creature to 0 hit points, you get one back. When you get to higher levels, I think the 20th level Bard ability is like when you start a combat without Bardic Inspiration, you get one. So it might, who gets to level 20 anyway. But I like this. The only thing I would probably do is change it from Charisma modifier times per day to proficiency bonus times per day, because that's sort of the transition we've seen in 5th edition, that you go to that, and that will potentially give you ultimately one more use of this per day when you get to later levels. So that being said, that is the subclass that I wanted to cover that I greatly enjoyed. And if we skip ahead, we can see there's the periodic table of elementals, and it's 4 new elementals and reactivity rules. So I've looked through, we'll look at this first one here, which is Comboro, volatile elementals composed of metals like lithium and potassium. Again, those are explosive elements. And you can see down here, it is a challenge rating 7. So this would allow you to, in theory, anybody that has access to elemental-based things, summoning or whatnot, this could be used if you would so choose. Resistance to fire, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks. Immunity to poison, standard condition immunities. A death burst ability, which kind of fits with potassium. Ductile form to squeeze through small spaces. Here's explosive reactivity. A creature that hits it with an attack must make a dex save or take fire damage. It lights up. It has 2 attacks, which are typically the slam attacks here, which deal bludgeoning and fire damage. If a target is a creature or a flammable object, it ignites, which is kind of cool. They just set on fire. Or they can use volatile burst, which recharges on a 6. It launches a hailstorm of explosive projectiles that land at 3 different locations within 120 feet. Each location in a 15-foot radius must make a dex save or take 66 fire damage and be knocked prone. On success, half damage and not knocked prone. It spreads around corners. A creature in the area of more than 1 can only be affected by it once, and the ability damages objects in the area and ignites flammable objects that aren't being carried or worn. And you can see there's a couple other ones here. So if we skip through, you can also see alternate rules elemental compound encounters. So this is if you're taking multiple elements and combining them together, they have a reactivity, which I thought was pretty cool. And then lastly here, we have Well of the Lost Gods, which is an 8th level adventure. And I did read through the whole thing, and it's awesome. It has a lot of interesting like magitech stuff to it. And probably one of my favorite parts, and again, full color maps and stuff like that, is there's a table here with this one room where you can find interesting magitech devices, like a universal translator module that basically allows you to cast comprehend languages at will, or armor made of padded material, and it's basically 13 plus your dexterity armor, padded armor, but it also gives you the benefits of things like adamantine armor, making critical hits normal hits, something we don't have with cloth-based armor. So there you go, folks. That is Arcadia issue 2. I like this one a lot. The adventure's really awesome. I love the Bard subclass, and maybe I'll have to go back and reread some of the other ones, but on first glance, the Bard was the one that really stood out to me. So let me know what you think in the comments down below about Arcadia issue 2. I'll put links in the description if you'd like to go check out and get a copy for yourself. It's available to patrons of MCDM, and I think for a slightly increased fee, you can go ahead and buy it yourself on a PDF through, I think, their store. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.